Welcome to Transport Vlog. My name is Paul and I'm at the Parramatta Metro Station construction site. There's a community open day, so we're going to have a little tour inside. The new Parramatta Metro Station will be on the Sydney Metro West line that is due to open in 2032, and this open day took place on the 21st of April 2024. After a short introduction and safety briefing, it was time to go on site, and I was very fortunate to be accompanied by a true expert. So I've got Dan Powrie with me, Project Director for Sydney Metro West.
It's one of our great 9 stations. This is going to be the epicentre of the 20-minute journey time from here to the city. Lots of archaeological finds in the first stage. Today we're going to look at the excavation of the box.
And if you're interested in the archaeological findings, we will cover that later.
That's the Bailey Bridge. So what we've got is for construction traffic to move from one side to the other, we've built this temporary bridge, and this gives us good temporary access for the construction traffic. Rather than going all the way around, they can cross over the top. As you can look around, lots of high buildings, lots of people watching us all the time, keeping an eye on us. So noise and dust and all those things is really a big part of what these guys have to manage.
And a few days earlier, someone working in one of these high buildings emailed me a few photos, including this one with the station box that we'll be shortly going into.
So before we started the excavation, we built what was called the D wall, or diaphragm wall. We love acronyms in railway worlds, as you can tell. So this D wall, which is pretty much just a concrete wall built underground, and that goes around the entire perimeter of the station box. So we built that all the way around, about 440 metres perimeter, all the way around. And as you can see, that's what you can see there, and we'll see it closer down there. And then you've got these big grey steel beams. They hold up the box. So they're temporary, they stop the box from doing that. So these temporary beams hold up the box and lets us excavate down. This concrete box gets left in, it's permanent works, and then when the station contractor starts, they'll go inside there and fit out the station, same as you've seen in other metro stations.
So we're now going to go down into the station box, and to do that, we need to wear some PPE. And that includes a hairnet, a Sydney Metro hard hat, and the kind of gloves that a magician would use, so I guess there might be some magic down below.
So here we go, we're going to go down about 15 metres, the entire box is double this height. So what we're going to see today is about half the excavation. When we finish the excavation, we put a construction lift on, but for us, we're walking.
Mind you guys.
There's chairs in the way as well, which is really, the chairs are not usually there for contractors. So what you can see there, that's the D wall. So that's a concrete wall that was piled down. It's about 1.6 metres wide. You dig it, and then you fill the hole with bentonite. So that holds up the sides of the wall. And then we dig down to a certain depth, and you put your steel cage in, then you put your concrete in, and the bentonite gets extracted. That way it keeps the wall the right size and clean all the way down. Then you pull out that bentonite, and then you get left with this beautiful product. And as you can see, these little blue dots, these are for future steel connections for the station. So when the station puts their beams and columns in, they just connect the steel work into those couplers.
Okay. These could be like for the different levels in the station?
Yep. So you'll have obviously your concourse level, you'll have your entrance level, and then you've got a platform at the bottom. So we have to plan it as far as advance. So obviously the station contract's not been let yet, but that's what these are. That's the diaphragm wall. So as you can see, the red and blue, that's how you dig it. You dig it in little panels like that. So as you can see, the dates, the start, finish, and when it was poured, better quality control. But that is your entire box there. Wow. And as you can see from the right-hand side, we've done 15 metres. That's the berm.
So a berm is a ridge or barrier constructed of compacted soil, gravel, rocks and stones. Its purpose is to prevent, divert or direct water away from a particular area, which in this case is likely to be the part of the station box that has already been excavated. There are currently 2 berm sections, with the one next to the excavated area being lower than the one closer to the Bailey Bridge.
That's a temporary bridge there, and as you can see at either end, you've got the yellow, which is the bores from each TBM. Above our heads, you can see the first 2 beams. These are temporary works. As you can see, the weight of that steel work, they're not simple, it's not easy. No. So there's 3 layers of that, 1, 2, and probably a third, probably now 5 metres beneath me, and then the slab. And they're literally there to hold the box up, they're temporary. As I pointed out before, you can see the little blue dots, that's where the permanent beam would go. So you'll have a permanent slab on top, permanent slab here, probably the concourse level, and then there'll be one more down, further down, depends on the final design.
Although it's not easy to see, the D-walls are in place on the remainder of this station box, which finishes close to Church Street. It's 192 metres long and 25 metres wide, with the D walls going down to 30 metres below the ground, which is slightly below the depth of this station box, which is about 28 metres. The temporary steel beams that support the D walls seem to be unique to this station box, and there is a reason for this. Other Sydney Metro West station boxes, such as at the bays, use cylindrical concrete piles for the walls, and these are supported by anchors, which go diagonally into the ground from the outside of the station box. And you can see the ends of these diagonal anchors very clearly here. Some of the anchors at the base station are 74 metres long, and to do this here would involve putting anchors under the Roxy Theatre and the NAB Bank Tower, and that's expensive and challenging to do. So how long do you think it will take to get down to the maximum?
To the bottom here, the TBMs arrive through those walls in early 25. So they won't be far off finishing.
That's not long.
It's not long.
Yeah.
So usually it's 12 months to do the D-wall and about 12 months to excavate. But it depends how hard that is. If that gets really hard, it could be a bit longer. And if it rains, this gets very wet. So 12 months average. Got the clay layer, and then you start seeing the sandstone. So the black grey is real hard Mittagong sandstone. So you can tell all that soft stuff above, all that gets reused at Clyde to raise the height, and then the sandstone as well gets recycled too. But now we're into good hard rock. And as you can see, the two machines, well, he's got a pecker on it. So all day long, they'll be smashing this away. And then at the moment, you can just see up there, the excavator with a long reach. That's called a long reach excavator. It's a very complicated name. But at the moment, she can reach down and bucket out the material. But at a point, it'll be a clamshell grab instead. So they'll change the process of excavating the material out. So at the moment, the long reach can just about reach all the rock around here. These guys just shovel it towards them, and then they change the process. So these have to be wide enough, obviously, to do that, and do all the bits and pieces that come inside the box. They see the hoses, so obviously during the day to keep the dust down, these nozzles get kicked in to keep the dust, the silica dust, look after your workforce. And the movement of that building there, the Roxy, no more than 5 mil during all this excavation. So that's really important we get that. So we're on top of the D-wall, so it's about up to there. As you can see, this is a joint. So this here, that's called a water bar. That's there to stop the water from getting into the box. So when they pour the diaphragm wall, this plastic membrane sits there, and that plastic membrane keeps the box watertight. Very simple, like engineering is. But it's good to see it because people don't quite know how do you keep the water out of it. So obviously for water to ingress, it's got to go find its weakest point. The weakest point will be the joint. So you put a water joint in there.
Is water an issue here?
The water table is approximately 5 meters deep. So if it wasn't for that kind of thing, it would be an issue, yes.
So things like sort of having a tank structure like at Brango or Waterloo, would that
absolutely.
be the case here?
Same thing, same for the bays. The water is probably the biggest thing, and the pressure of the water pushing a song. So it's not the soil, it's soil filled with water. So you've got 1,000 kilograms of water, you've got about 600 kilograms of earth, you've got 1,600 kilograms per metre pushing at this wall. That's why these columns and beams are so big, because they've got to hold all that load back. So obviously if you've got a dry site, you take away 1,000 kilograms per square metre. So yes. And you've got all the loads of these buildings as well pushing down. And settlement criteria, our design is you can't have any more than 10 mil of settlement above you. And that's quite a high tolerance. Because obviously any damage above that, we have to pay for it. So all these buildings get a survey before we start and a survey after we finish, just to say that we have not caused that damage. So that was a deep dive into the station box construction. Now for the Parramatta Metro Station entrances, and the first one will be about here, so opposite the Roxy Theatre. And it will be on a new wide green pedestrianised public walkway called Civic Link. Here is an artist impression of how this station entrance will look, along with the new Civic Link, and that building on the other side is part of the Roxy Theatre. Civic Link will start at Parramatta Square and then cross Macquarie Street, close to the Parramatta Square light rail stop. It will then go over the station box, alongside the Roxy Theatre and future Metro Station entrance, then across George Street and onto the new Powerhouse Museum, which you can see the cranes for, and finishing at the Parramatta River. There will be a second entrance on Church Street just here, and this will be quite close to the Church Street light rail stop, which is a little further up this road. Now back to Dan to talk about the tunnelling, starting with the Western tunnelling package that includes Parramatta Metro Station and is being bored by tunnel boring machines Betty and Dorothy. TBMs for WTP, they've tunnelled about 4 kilometres already. They tunnel from Rose Hill, which is Clyde,
Yep.
and then they tunnel towards Sydney Olympic Park. They get lifted up from Sydney Olympic Park, brought back to Clyde, dropped back in the box, and then they tunnel towards us now. This is unusual, because to lift them TBM sort of mid-flight is unusual, but what we're doing is lifting them up, dropping them back, and then the tunnel towards here, as I say, all the way to Westmead. So this is about a 10-kilometre tunnel package.
The central tunnelling package is from the base to Sydney Olympic Park, and this is about 11 kilometres. TBMs Daphne and Beatrice were the first to be in the ground, and they started tunnelling from the base in May 2023, and in late April 2024 they reached Burwood North. The eastern tunnelling package is from the base to Hunter Street, and although the distance is quite short at just 3.5 kilometres, this one is likely to be the most challenging.
The final tunnel package, which goes under the harbour twice, different type of TBM, a slurry TBM, that goes into the city, and those TBMs will be launched in the next few months.
So the TBM that's going to go under the water, is that going to be similar to like Kathleen that...
The City and South West ones, yeah, exactly the same as City and South West. Slurry machine, so you pump slurry into the face because of the pressure the water pushes down, so you want to keep pushing that out. So yeah, they're slurry machines, 2 of those, and these 4 are hard rock TBMs. Very hard rock, need that good TBM to do that. But ultimately, all the tunnelling will be finished mid-2026, and then we'll start the station contracts after that. This is Dorothy here, that's in Rose Hill Box. The TBMs arrive, they put down big railings, guide rails, then they actually literally drag the machine along, and then she starts tunnelling again as it goes that way. So there'll be underneath her feet, there's 2 nozzles, that's for the sort of air intake, so that gets excavated. TBMs drive through, 2 big breakthroughs, then we'll launch it again, then it goes to Westmead, and then that's it finished. Then they get lifted out of Westmead, and then they get reconditioned or reused.
Some of these on West have been reused?
Well, reused, definitely the metal outside, that's reused a lot, because there's the Heron Connect, they do all the TBMs across the world, well, majority. So there's a buyback usually, so when the TBMs are finished, do you want this back? I don't know the value, but effectively then they take the superstructure back, a lot of the internal stuff, but gearboxes and that are not fit for purpose to be reused again, but definitely the heavy metal work can be reused. Certain elements of the cutter head can be reused too. But I think, yeah, we've got 2 or 3 from City and South West.
Yeah, just give them different names though.
Different names, different paintwork, yeah.
Obviously there's talk about extra stations between Sydney Olympic Park and here. Can the station still be built once the tunnels have been bored?
Yes, it can be. It's challenging.
Yeah.
Obviously, you'd like to do as early as possible.
Yeah.
And we're working with other parts of government to get that decision as soon as possible. But what the TBMs are doing, we've ensured that the TBMs won't be delayed. So from whatever decision happens, that we can carry on with the TBM. So the project will not be impacted. But yeah, the sooner the better, because the later it is, the more challenging it is. But I'm a civil engineer, we can do anything.
Exactly.
Nothing's impossible.
And this leads nicely on to talking about the Sydney Metro West project in general, with Dan answering a few questions that have been on my mind and possibly on yours too. So Dan, tell me about the power. It's going to be different from Sydney Metro City and South West.
Yeah, we've not got DC power, we've got 25,000 AC, which is probably more common across Europe and other parts of the world. We would see it more efficient, more reliable, less heat inducing. The tunnel stays the same diameter of tunnel. Trains will be slightly up-spec'd, but generally that power supply is just an improvement, lessons learned from other projects across the world. Unlike City and South West, unlike Crossrail, this is effectively a greenfield project. We have obviously got integrated stations like Westmead, North Strathfield and Hunter Street, which you can walk to Martin Place. So we've really got the integration, but it's not train-to-train integration. It's a greenfield site, terminates at either end, at Westmead and Hunter Street, but doesn't preclude it going further in the future.
I know there's tunnel stubs at the Hunter Street end.
And Westmead as
well.
We've designed our stations to take 7 cars. We start off exactly City and South West, train every 4 minutes, but as patronage increases, we can increase that to 2-minute headway.
So Clyde is 7 car.
7 car at the moment with a stabling facility for up to about 20. And then obviously we can expand that to double because we've got a big enough site.
We then got talking about some of the other stations on Sydney Metro West, starting with Hunter Street.
Because we've built Hunter Street right in the heart of the CBD, people will want to use it. You could have moved the station maybe half a kilometre either way, but you wouldn't have got the patronage. So you imagine 34,000 people, AM peak, getting off 2 platforms. So all the escalators, all the lifts, the platform width has to be designed for that. And then you come to a smaller station like 5 Dock, maybe 6,000 people. So slightly different patronage. And then you look at the Olympic Park, we've got 3 platforms.
So is it going to be like the Olympic Park station? You still have 2 tracks, but you have platforms on both.
You'll have the 3, you've got 2 sides and a central. So for day-to-day running, you probably just use the central. But when you've got events, you can bring people in from the side to go in or out, depending on the flow. So working with heavy rail, that heavy rail station stays, we can manage the 70,000 peak after an event. So for Easter shows, for all the events there, that's going to be a lynch to keep people moving.
The Parramatta Metro Station construction site is steeped in history, and archaeological excavation has uncovered some interesting and important artefacts. And to explain all this, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Amanda Dusting. So we've got Amanda, you are, what's your role?
I'm the secondary excavation director of the site.
So the most common thing you found here is bottles.
Yes,
So
look, it's unusual to have found so many bottles.
Yeah.
We normally on historic excavations, we find masses and masses of broken crockery, sort of ceramics, often blue transfer print, which is ubiquitous. But on this site, we normally do find some bottles, but we were amazed on this site to have found as many bottles as we have. And the reason that we've found them was because they were dumped. There was a massive dump in a large pond. They were the backfill of the pond. Most of them were broken, but many were complete. They were aerated water bottles, many of them, and they were from a cordial and aerated water manufacturer called Peter Miller. And Peter Miller had his business on George Street, and we have historical records that tell us this. And then when we found all of these bottles, it was extraordinary that we had that evidence.
And if you look closely, you can see his surname on some of the bottles. It was these green torpedo-shaped bottles that contained the aerated water, which is another name for fizzy or carbonated water. And these bottles used corks, and if the cork was wet, the water was still fizzy, and if the cork dried out, that meant that some of the water might have evaporated and lost its fizz. And I know you've also found horseshoes. Tell me more about those.
We've got many horseshoes. Of course, people had horses. It's pre-cars. We have excavated 2 stables, and within those stables we've had large horseshoes and small horseshoes. And on display we've got a really large one from probably a Clydesdale or something similar, and then a tiny weeny one which would be a pony or a Shetland pony.
So what else? Anything particularly unusual you found that surprised you?
We've had a lot of butchered bone.
Okay.
And you'll see some of that on display also. And these are large bones, probably from bovine bones, probably cattle. And you can see wonderful butchering marks, sort of very clear cuts. Now we do know that there was a butcher who lived on Church Street. His name was Hugh Taylor. In the pond also we found masses of leather shoes, and we know that there was a cobbler who was also on Church Street. So it's wonderful when you have those moments where the archaeology is informing the history.
So what's going to happen with what you found? Are you thinking you might have some kind of display here when the station's built, or?
This is Metro's plan. So there are a lot of artefacts and a lot of opportunities.
I know you're at the point now where everything that will be found has been found, or is it still ongoing?
Absolutely not. We've done about 60% of the clearance. We will be starting back here in 2 weeks. And we are hoping to uncover 2 more convict huts along on George Street.
Historical records reveal that there were 5 convict huts in total, and the remains of 2 of them were found last year.
We also have more work on Macquarie Street, and who knows? Given what we've already found, we know that there's a lot of archaeology under the ground. They would just demolish what they've got and then build on top and build on top and build on top, which is how we end up with our layers of going through time.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Amanda. Many of those clips that I displayed whilst talking to Amanda came from a previous open day in July 2023, and this was very much focused on the archaeological findings. And at this open day, Amanda was doing a number of talks, so here are some snippets from one of them.
So the way we do the Aboriginal testing is we dig 1 by 1 holes, and we wet sieve all of that material, and within that wet sieving material we find small artefacts that are stone tools, sort of flakes and cores and things like this. The European heritage is more sort of recognisable, not as ephemeral, and it is footings, they can be sandstone, they can be brick, they can be concrete. It depends, up through the ages.
So when we look at the archaeology, there's so much important stuff, all the way from the first convict huts, all the way through to the car park that we're stood underneath that used to be here. So it's really a focus, a high archaeological site that we've really tried to protect. We've got over 1,000 items, so it's really interesting. And what we'll try and do is reuse them in the fabric of the station, maybe. But it's really interesting. And we don't want to lose that. I think that's a lot of thing about, you're just digging the site up. We're actually retaining as much as possible because this is heritage. We're building a 120-year railway. We want to maintain that heritage and just look after it for future generations.
So that concludes this video on the Parramatta Metro Open Day. A big thanks to Dan and Amanda for sharing their knowledge on camera, and also to Jim and Noel for helping with the filming. I would also like to give a shout out to Matthew Hayes, who recently joined my Patreon community as an XPT member. And you can become a Patreon too and get a number of cool perks. Go to patreon.com/transportvlog to check out the different levels, and you can try it out for free for 7 days. So that was your tour of the Parramatta Metro Station construction site as it was looking in April 2024. Please give this video a like, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment or question below, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.
So we've got convict period huts, and on this site we have found one on Church Street, and we have 3 on George Street. The Macquarie Street properties, which were down here, are slightly later.